Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm back with another video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different today. Today I wanted to talk about the ways that I make money selling sports cards, and I might be helpful for new people getting into the hobby or some people that are just starting to flip, anything like that. I want to start doing more videos like this, just talking about the hobby. Obviously, I love ripping. Ripping will be the main part of the channel, but I just want to upload more content for you guys, so I'm just trying to spread my wings a little bit and try to make some new videos like this, and if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. But today we're going to be talking about ways that I find easy to make money selling sports cards. So I hope you guys do enjoy the video, and if you guys are new here and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and let's get into it. Alright guys, so tip number one is going to be grading. And why grading adds the most value to cards, and what I think is the most easiest way to gain value in a card, is just because if you take a raw card, you grade it, it gets a PSA 10, people will pay that extra money just knowing that card is in a PSA 10 condition. It makes the card more rare. People just like that it's in pristine shape, it's flawless, there's nothing wrong with it. And most of the time, the PSA 10 is like 2 to triple the value of it raw. So if it's a $100 card raw, it gets a PSA 10, that's probably going to be a $300 card. And so right there, you just gain $200 of potential profits just by grading a card. It does cost money, and it's not the easiest thing. You can't just send cards in and hope that they get PSA 10s, because you have to really look at it, and it takes time getting an eye for these cards. You got to pay attention to centering, corners, edges, surface, all that good stuff. And honestly, it takes a while to be able to look at cards and just get that perfect eye for it. I am not the best at it yet, but I try every day to get better. And my two examples on how this has worked well for me was I bought a Luka Doncic Kaboom raw. I paid $1,000 for it raw. I paid that $40 to grade it, sent it to PSA. Always send to PSA, just because that's just what gives you that extra value. Everyone wants PSA. Don't send your stuff to SGC, HGA. If it's just a PC card and those are the stuff you like, send it to them. Do whatever you want. But if you're just trying to gain that value, always send a PSA or Beckett. I personally like SGC slabs. I've sent PC cards to SGC, but if my sole purpose in this card I'm doing is to try to get some value out of it, always send a PSA. And so I sent that Luka Doncic Kaboom to PSA, ended up getting a PSA 10. So now that card went up to $2,300, and that's what I was able to sell it for. So I'm into the card for $1,040 after grading, and I was able to sell it for $2,300. That's a huge profit, and I'm not going to say that happens all the time, because obviously with bigger cards, bigger risk. I bought in a $1,000 card, and I paid heavy on it because I thought that it was going to get a good grade. Guess what? It came back a PSA 7. I lost money on it, so it goes both ways. But just by grading a card, usually what I do is I'll buy 10 to 15 cards. You know, I try to just look at the centering. A lot of times on eBay, it's hard to tell because the cards aren't in your hand. First thing I look at is centering, and to make sure they say there's nothing wrong with the card. And if the card is pretty decently centered, I'll buy, let's just say I'll buy 10 cards. You send them all into PSA, and if 4 to 5 of them get PSA 10s, that's going to cover everything, and you're probably going to have a profit to make, even with the other cards getting 9s or 8s or something like that, just because of that 2 to 3 time multiplier that PSA 10 gives you. That's a lot of room to make. So that's going to be my tip number one, is grading. Alright guys, so tip number two is going to be buying bulk collections. And the reason why buying bulk collections works out pretty well is because most of the time, someone, let's just say they have 300 to 500 card collection. For whatever reason, they're trying to sell. They inherited it, they don't have room at their house, they're moving, they don't care about cards. Whatever reason, there's not a lot of people out there that want to just buy 300 to 500 cards at a time. Most people are just going to pick through the guy's collection, take all the good stuff, and leave him with all the junk that's going to be harder to sell. And so if he finds me and say, I'm going to be like, hey man, I'm willing to buy all those cards. You're not going to have to do any work. You literally just sell them to me, and you don't have to think twice about them anymore. He's probably going to sell it to you at a good price just because you're taking weight off his shoulders and it's easy. He's just dumping them, getting rid of them. And usually when I'm buying stuff like that, I like to pay around 50 to 55%. So if it's a $1,000 collection, pay $500 to $550. And then that goes into tip number one too, is hey, now you got a little bit of a better deal since you bought bulk. Send those cards off to get graded. If they get good grades, you gain that value, and you're able to get a little bit more out of the collection. You gain value. Now that stuff raw that was worth $1,000 now might have a value of 1,500 now, or, you know, just whatever it is. You can make up whatever number. You guys know what I'm saying. So that's why tip number 2, collections. That's why I like collections. And honestly, it's just fun selling collections too. I love getting a big collection, going through it, finding the good stuff, finding the bad stuff, just, you know, go through the collection. Obviously, do your due diligence as well. Go through every little card, price every little thing. Yes, it's going to take a lot of time, but it will help you in the long run. Because you don't want to, I'm not just saying, hey, some guy has a box of cards, just buy them without, you know, paying any attention. You got to actually go through, come up with a value, and then, you know, negotiate a little bit. You have to know how to negotiate too if you're going to be wanting to make money in the hobby. Huge negotiation. A lot of negotiation that goes into it. So you do have to be a people person as well. That's probably something I'll talk about at the end here. So step number 2, buying bulk collections. All right, guys, so tip number 3 is going to be buying at a safe but fair margin. And I say that as in usually if I'm buying a card, I usually, because obviously, like I said, on collections, I pay 50 to 55%. But if you're buying just a handful of cards, you know, 1 to 3 to 4, 5, you know, 6 cards at a time, there's a lot more people that are willing to buy all those, so you have a lot more competition, which means you got to pay a little more. So usually when I'm buying stuff like that, I like to pay it usually at 70% because I know I can go make that 10% probably pretty fast and just wash my hands with it, just because, you know, you don't want to squeeze all that little money out of it. Yes, I guess if you truly believe in that player or whatever, you can do that. But I've been bit in the ass so many times doing that, holding a card just because I want $100 more out of it than someone's already offered me, and guess what? They get hurt. They go to jail. That's happening all the time. Everyone's going to jail. They get hurt. It's just so much could happen in that time frame, and then guess what? Now you're losing money on that card. So usually, if you buy at that safe 70%, if you can get it for a better price, cool. You're more safe. That's a little bit more money that you make, but also, guys, do good business. If you see someone come up to your table and they obviously don't know what they're doing, like maybe they inherited the cards, they just, you know, they don't know what they have, don't just rip them off, guys. You know, obviously there is people that do that, but if you do that, they're never going to bring you cards in because guess what? They find out that you just sold them a $50 card for $500, then they're not going to come back to your table ever again and bring you anything. So if you do good business, it's better for you in the long run. You can always rip someone off and make that quick money, but guess what? Doing good business is better for the long term. You'll make more money in the long term. You know, if you make that $500 off that one guy, guess what? If you make $50 and this guy's selling you cards every week, you know, you can easily get there in a couple of weeks, and then you can make more and more. The money is infinite you can make if you do good business with people and build good relationships. That's huge. That's what's wrong with this generation. I feel like a lot of people are just into ripping people off and just making that quick, easy money, but they're not thinking about it long term. You always have to think long term. If you do good business with people and build good relationships, you'll be able to make money long term. You don't want to make quick term money because then all of a sudden, once you've burned every bridge, you don't have no one to buy from. You don't have any connections. Everyone's saying bad stuff about your name, and you're just going to be burnt out in this hobby. Trust me, this hobby is huge, but the word spreads fast. So you just want to obviously do good business and buy stuff at a safe but fair margin. Be fair with people, and I always do that. If I'm ever dealing with a kid that comes up to my table, I make sure his parent is involved. I show them everything just because I don't want to be that guy to rip off a little kid. You know, if I rip them off and make an extra $100, that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to sleep well at night knowing that I do good and fair business, but, you know, I can also still make a little money. When both people are happy, that's the best case scenario. So make sure you guys always buy at a safe but fair margin, and make sure you do good business. It's always good in the long term. So that's step number 3. Alright guys, so that's just a couple of ways that I do think. Some of them may be obvious, but this video was made for beginners and other people just getting into the hobby. So at the end of the day, it is a hobby. Just have fun and do things the way you want to do it. If you guys did learn a thing or two, have any other tips, leave a comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.